Today, we're breaking down something most people overlook when they talk about discipline. You don't need motivation, you need self-trust. Hey, I'm Szechuan. Welcome to my channel. Here we talk about self-love, soft living, and actually becoming the woman you said you'd be. In this video, I'm walking you through 5 simple psychology-backed ways to build self-trust that naturally turn into real discipline. Real discipline isn't about forcing yourself to do hard things. It's about believing yourself when you say you will. By the end, you'll have a clear framework to start this journey. Nothing fluffy, nothing extreme, just methods that work. Let's get into it. One thing that you can do is keep one tiny promise and guard it. The fastest way to start building self-trust is to prove you can keep a promise, even the smallest one. Most people break trust with themselves because they aim too big, too fast. I'm going to the gym 5 days a week, or I'm waking up at 5 a.m. When they miss, their brain quietly learns we don't mean what we say. Instead, start microscopic. Pick one small measurable promise you can absolutely keep, like I'll drink a glass full of water before my morning coffee, or I'll wash my face before bed. When you follow through, you trigger a dopamine response, the reward center of your brain, the same system that motivates all goal-directed behavior. Over time, that loop, promise, action, reward, rewires your brain to expect success. Studies show these micro wins increase what's called self-efficacy, your internal sense of, I can handle this. When self-efficacy rises, discipline stops feeling like punishment and it starts to feel like proof. You don't chase massive goals yet, chase credibility with yourself. One tiny promise, guarded fiercely, is worth more than 10 big ones you keep breaking. The second thing you need to do is create cues that make habits easy. Once you've proven you can keep one small promise, the next step is to make that promise easy to keep. Most of us think discipline means pushing through resistance every single time, but science shows that environment beats willpower. If your cues and setups make a behavior simple, your brain doesn't have to fight itself to follow through. In 2010, researcher Philippa Lally at University College London studied how habits actually form. On average, it took 66 days of repeating a behavior before it felt automatic. But the key was not motivation. It was consistent cues, a trigger that reminded people what to do. Think of cues as the on switch for discipline. For example, lay out your workout clothes the night before. Keep your journal open on your pillow. Put your vitamins next to your toothbrush. These little signals tell your brain this is what happens here. James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, calls this environment design. Make the good habits obvious and the bad ones invisible. When you build a physical environment that supports your goals, you don't need to argue with yourself. The setup does half the work. Here's what that looks like in real life. I used to tell myself I'd read more, but my phone was the first thing I saw every morning. Now I keep a book on top of my phone at night. I can still grab my phone, but I'd have to move the book first. That one cue has doubled the amount I read without forcing anything. Discipline doesn't mean fighting distractions. It means designing fewer battles. The less friction between intention and action, the more likely the action happens. So don't rely on trying harder. Rely on structure. Create simple cues that make following through feel natural. Because when the setup is right, consistency stops being a struggle. It becomes the path of least resistance. The third part to this is tracking your follow through, not perfection. Most people destroy their momentum by only measuring outcomes. Pounds lost, followers gained, money made. The problem is outcomes take time. And when you don't see instant results, you assume nothing is working. That's when self-doubt creeps in and you start breaking the promises that were actually moving you forward. Psychologists call this premature disengagement. Quitting before your brain has the time to connect the dots. So instead of tracking results, track evidence of effort. Check marks, streak counters, habit trackers. They're not childish. They're visible proof that you're showing up. Each time you record a win, your brain's reward system releases a small surge of dopamine, the neurotransmitter that says, good job, and do that again. That chemical hit reinforces the loop between effort and reward, which makes it easier to repeat the action tomorrow. Celebrating small wins significantly increases self-efficacy and overall life satisfaction. In other words, your brain learns confidence through evidence. When you mark progress, even small progress, you're building a personal track record of reliability. It's data that says, I keep my word. So write it down. Keep a simple list or habit tracking app and update it daily. Not to be perfect, but to prove that you are consistent. I personally track 3 things: my morning routine, reading time, and gym days. I don't grade myself. I just record whether I did it or not. At the end of the week, seeing those check marks builds credibility. Not with the internet, but with me. When your brain can see your progress, you stop chasing motivation and start trusting the process. That's the goal here. Proof over pressure. You don't need perfect streaks. You just need evidence that you show up more often than you don't. The fourth way to build trust sounds really simple, but it's one of the hardest. Change the way you speak to yourself. Most people try to discipline themselves through criticism. You're lazy. You can't stay consistent. What's wrong with you? It might sound like tough love, but neurologically, it does the opposite of what you want. Self-criticism activates the same threat circuits in the brain that fire when you're being attacked by someone. MRI studies from the University of Pittsburgh found that harsh self-talk lights up the amygdala, which is the brain's fear center, and it actually shuts down the prefrontal cortex, the part that helps with planning and focus. When that happens, your brain stops learning and starts defending. So, if every time you mess up, you tear yourself down, you're teaching your brain that effort equals danger. That kills motivation and confidence. The fix isn't fake positivity, it's accurate self-respect. Talk to yourself the way you talk to a teammate you actually want to perform better. Okay, we missed that workout, but we're still building momentum. We slipped today, but tomorrow's already on the calendar. Calm brain equals clear choices equals discipline that sticks. You don't build self-trust by bullying yourself into action. You build it by giving yourself direction and grace at the same time. When you respect yourself, you start behaving like someone worth respecting. And that loop, respect to action to proof, is the same loop that builds discipline. The final piece to this is where self-trust turns into discipline that lasts. Anchor your habits to your identity. Most people start with outcomes. I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to save $5,000. Those are fine goals. But outcome-based thinking keeps you chasing a finish line. When you hit it, motivation drops. When you miss it, you feel like you failed. Identity-based habits work differently. Instead of asking, what do I want to achieve? You ask, who do I want to be? And psychology backs this up. Research on self-perception theory show that people infer who they are by observing what they repeatedly do. When your actions line up with your values, your brain updates its self-image. So rather than saying, I'm trying to be disciplined, say, I am a disciplined person. Each time you follow through, no matter how small, you cast a vote for that identity. Over time, those votes become proof. James Clear calls this identity-based change. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. The more votes you cast, the more automatic the behavior becomes because your brain wants to stay consistent with its self-image. Neuroscience has a name for that pull toward consistency. It's called cognitive consonance. It's the comfort of alignment between beliefs and actions. When what you say and what you do match, stress decreases and emotional stability rises. That's why disciplined people often look calm. Their actions match their identity. This is also where the trust loop completes itself. Keeping promises builds self-trust, builds identity, reinforces more kept promises. That's discipline. It's not a mood, it's not a punishment, just integrity practice until it's your personality. And here's the best part. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. Identity shifts start with evidence. Do one thing your future self will be proud of. Tomorrow, do it again. And eventually, the person you kept trying to become stops feeling like a goal and it just becomes your normal. So let's recap the 5 things that build self-trust, the foundation of real discipline. 1, keep one tiny promise and guard it. 2, create cues that make habits easy. 3, track your follow-through, not perfection. 4, talk to yourself like someone you respect. And 5, anchor your habits to your identity. If you start here, small, consistent, and honest, you will rebuild credibility with yourself faster than any motivation hack could ever do. Discipline isn't hard when you trust the person in charge of it, and that person is you. I'm Szechuan. This channel is all about self-love, soft living, and becoming the woman you promised yourself to be. Subscribe so you don't miss out on what's next. And leave a comment sharing the one promise you're starting with today. And remember, discipline is just self-trust in action. You got this.